You're on, Callie. And you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Hi, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Callie Rolfswang from USAID Washington. We're about to get started with our voucher webinar. I'm going to just give 1 minute, and I'm also going to share my screen, so bear with me for a second. Okay, let's hope that I'm going to do this correctly. Okay, we have a very busy agenda today, so let's go ahead and get started. So typically, Debbie Khalil, our ASAP AOR, welcomes you from Washington, but Debbie agreed to let me do it today, so I'm very happy to have folks joining our ASAP webinar on vouchers, liquidation, cash advances, and burn rates. I see from the participant list, this is a very popular series. The mechanics of how money moves, I think, is always an important one. So very happy to have you all join us today. As you all know, this is geared towards our new PEPFAR local partners, but of course we've also invited all of our USAID staff who manage PEPFAR awards, including AORs and OFM staff, to join today. And we hope that they'll also participate in the discussion throughout the webinar. I want to remind you, if you have questions during the webinar, to please put those in the Q&A box, not the chat box, and we will address those as we move through the webinar. Okay, let me go to my next slide. Okay, so, so we'll be hearing today from Irene, a voucher and examiner from USAID Egypt, who will walk us through how you fill the forms out and what you're supposed to do. And then we'll have some of our colleagues from USAID Egypt, Tigay Tilahun and Tisfay, join us and provide some perspective on what happens once you submit your voucher. Who looks at it and where does it go? And then Sandra Kellerman from our ASAP consortium member FPD will be providing some background on how FPD submits their vouchers and cash management. And of course, Doug Franke will provide us an overview how this fits in with the principles of financial management. So I just wanted to quickly, before we jump into the meat of the presentation, share a couple of announcements with you. So here is our full ASAP webinar series. Want to highlight that in a few weeks, May 13th, we'll have another webinar, and FPD will share with us all of the courses that they're offering through the ASAP consortia. A really great resource, so we hope you'll tune in for that. On May 20th, we'll have a repeat of the USG Rules and Regulations webinar, hosted by Doug Franke, also very popular, so please join for that. And then I will just let you read the rest of them that we have planned. We have a very full agenda throughout the summer, so I'm looking forward to having everyone join those. And then also, newly started in May, we are launching our French webinar series. So we hope we'll have our colleagues from our French-speaking countries join these webinars fully in French. Okay. I just want to take a few minutes to remind folks about some of the resources available to our PEPFAR local partners. So we spoke about this last time. USAID is hosting an Implementing Partner Solutions Platform Network. This is an opportunity that we are providing to partners to share how they are approaching COVID and some of the solutions that they are coming up with during this pandemic. So some of the we've done a number of calls already for the Partner Solutions platform. There are more calls coming up. I don't have the dates, but we can share those via email. But some of those topics are on standard bottlenecks that partners are encountering, strategic information, OVC during COVID, gender-based violence during COVID, a second supply chain discussion, and risk communication and community engagement. So we'll be sure to share these dates with you if you're interested in joining, or even if you're interested in contributing to the presentations by partners on how you're adapting your programming during COVID. Here is a list of some of the prior IP calls and a link to the resources shared on those calls. We'll make sure that you have those as well. And then lastly, I just want to remind folks that SCAC releases the technical guidance for PEPFAR programs during COVID twice a week. I think it's on Wednesday and Friday, so please check the website for the latest. And then you can see here the different release dates. They update different topics in terms of technical guidance. I think the last technical guidance release had some updates on food security. And of course, you can find additional public resources at some of these links. I think that is all for me. So I'll turn it back to Catherine and the team. And actually, I think Irene is on next, right? So thanks. And
thank you, Kelly. You muted yourself. You can hear me, guys? Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Good morning, good afternoon for everyone. This is Irene Samir, voucher examiner from Egypt. I'll be happy to present or talk today about the vouchers. So I'll start sharing my screen right now. And here is my presentation. Today, I'm going to start with my objectives of this presentation. We need to understand, first of all, the cycle of the voucher. When USAID receives the voucher, what is the process for the FM and the USAID all? Understand the voucher cycle, explain the difference between the grants and the cooperative agreements, discuss the supporting documents required for presenting the vouchers, and then understand the forms. And we are going to go through every and each form that is requested for reimbursing or getting your money, or the advances, having the money before the expense when you need cash on hand for the expenses. This is the voucher cycle. We start, number one, with the USAID. When the vendor sends the voucher to the USAID, this is the point of contact receives this voucher. The point of contact is usually mentioned in the award. So in the payment, when you usually go to the payment part of your award, you're going to find that send the vouchers to. So that's the POC listed in the award, point of contact. Normally that point of contact, when he or she receives the voucher, he sends it to the COR for approval. The COR is going to review and do his due diligences, and then after his approval, after he's satisfied with the voucher and approval, it goes to the voucher examiners and supervisory voucher examiners to review the voucher and pay it. When we pay, we approve for the voucher, and then we go to the ACO, the certifying officer, authorized certifying officer. And when that certifying officer certifies on the payment, it goes to the bank, or our request goes to the payment office, our payment office, to pay the money. As you can see that the point of contact, as soon as they receive the voucher, they send it to the AOR or the COR. So based on this, I'm going to stop here and request my colleague the AOR from Ethiopia to help me. I'm sorry, the name is
Yeah, don't worry.
Tigai
Yes,
Tilan.
that's fine.
I'm sorry, Tigan. I'm sorry.
Can you hear
I'm going
me?
to stop here. Yes.
Can
Thank
you put your camera on, Sagai?
Shall I on the camera or off?
On, please.
Okay.
Great.
I'll
Thank
stop
you so
share
much.
now.
Okay, here you go. Thank you so much. I am Sagai Tlaun from USAID Ethiopia. I am the AWR for around 5 IPs and POC for the local implement partners here in the Ethiopia mission. So as clearly mentioned by the previous presenter, and I just highlighted some of my perspectives as an AOR. Just she put, unfortunately for us, our agreement is FAA, but that means the reimbursement. It's a little bit by milestone. They submit it every month, and also the reimbursement is every month. So as she mentioned clearly, they, at the beginning, so they send to us their monthly progress reports to the AORs. The AORs review that monthly progress report, and they send back to them. And after they got their feedback, they submit it because we are requiring to fulfill the milestones. There's a minimum package for the milestone. They should to pay. They should fulfill that milestone. Otherwise, we'll reduce the amount. So they submitted by attaching their progress report to the payment section, the OFAM payment section, and the payment section send to the AORs via assist. And the assist is actually they pop up to the AORs. The AORs reviewed their whether they are completed the form or not by that's the SF 1034, the local currency or the by dollar amount. They checked everything, and they also checked about the progress report. They was required to attach of the necessary progress report, and after they approved, back to the voucher examiner, and the voucher examiner to send to the certified officer, and then they at the end they collect the money from their banks, the IPs. So far we don't have that much the major problem. At the beginning, we have faced a lot of problem because local implement partners are new. They are a little bit confused with completing the form, and they are strange for some forms. So we gave orientation and training in collaboration with payment section. Now they're on track. No problem is challenging so far with all of, for us, for instance, we have 10 local implementing partners. We don't have major challenges on the payment section. And the most important thing, and working closely with OFIM on the payment section is critical because sometimes they have a lot of requests, but these LIPs, they are new for minor things as well. So working with them is make things easier and also more facilitating properly, and they receive their money. So with the cash flow is good for the time so far.
Thank you, Sagai. Can we go back to Irene?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sagai. And thank you very much for identifying our role as voucher examiners. Thank you for that. Okay, let me share my presentation again. And as Sagai said, that yes, as voucher examiners, we have to system use, and then we do our processes routing the voucher through the assist. So for the cooperative agreements and differences between cooperative agreements and grants, what are the needed documents for a voucher examiner to review his or her voucher? First of all, to know the difference between grants, the grant is transferring the funds from the USAID to another party to implement programs which will contribute to the public, carrying out the objectives of the USAID. We can say that the grant is more like a gift to the grantee to help him or to help those who are holding the grant to contribute to the public benefit. As for the cooperative agreements, the cooperative agreement is also like funds we give, but actually we have to review with the implementing partner how they are doing with their agreement with the USAID. So mostly the required documents are approved SF425, recommended SF1034, and any extra documents, certifications required by the award. These required documents usually are also mentioned in the award. So whatever is in the award, you have to read your award very well to know what we as voucher examiners and USAID need from the grantee and awardee. So for you guys, you have to read your award, cooperative agreement or grant, and based on the payment terms, you have to know what is required from you. Because as voucher examiners, we read quite well the award and we require the supporting documents as mentioned exactly in the award. Sorry, I'll go back. I skipped one slide.
Irene, you're coming in and out a little bit because of your connection. I'll let you know when you need to repeat something.
Which part would you like me to repeat?
No, I'll let you know moving forward.
Okay, no problem, thank you. Okay, this is, here we see as it's written, it's the basic awardee information. So, of course, when we have the SF1034, this form we need to know whom are we paying to. So that's the payee's name, address, the award number, because some awardees has multiple awards. Some of the vendors, we call them vendors, some of the vendors have multiple awards. So I have to know the award number, and the award number is written here, contract number and date. Here what we mean by date is the date that the vendor or the grantee took that grant with this first signed grant. Paid by whom? Paid by here is the method of payment. Also the method of payment, of course, depends on the awardee, because whether it's EFT or check, this is based on the awardee and the country the awardee is in. Some people says we cannot have easily flow of wire transfer, so we would like to have checks, and that's the method how they do it. So they paid by either EFT or check. The payee's account. We would prefer that to have the payee's account number here, especially for the first voucher coming to us, and that to determine which bank account to transfer the money to. Because as we said, that some awardees have multiple grants or cooperative agreements, and each award has to have its own bank account. So here they have, at least for the first voucher, we have to have the bank account number. Here we come to the part where we need to know more information, Here we need the invoice period and number. For example, this invoice is to cover from 1st of January to the 24th of January, so that we keep track of the dates of the vouchers. Sorry. Okay, and also here you have to determine which the period covering, the number of invoice, and the currency and amount. Why do we say the currency and amount? Because some of our grantees has local currencies and some use dollar, and we have to determine exactly which currency we are using to pay for the vendor, not to have any wrong payments for the grantee or the vendor. Sorry. Another form that is very important for us is the 425. The 425 form is designed to replace the financial status report. The old forms, for those who were working with the USAID previously, know that we used to request for 269 and 272, but now we are replacing these two to SF 425. The 425 here is a big screen, or the whole form. This is how it looks like. And we'll go here in part by part to know how to fill and read this form. Of course, report type, we have it either quarterly or annually, final. I don't think that USAID do more than quarterly, but for example, this is quarterly report, and if you have a final report, this is the final voucher you're going to submit. The basics of accounting, whether it's cash or accrual, of course, we prefer that we use cash method for the basic accounting. And then the project grant period. This is the period where your grant is for. For example, you are having a 5-year grant. So it starts on 2020 and it is up till 2025. So here you put the project grant period. Here we go to the detailed parts of the SF 425. Actually, this have the cash receipts. What do we mean by the cash receipts? The cash receipts are all the amounts that you received from USAID. Either it's in advances, in disbursements, whatever the expenses that you submitted or the requests you requested from USAID, you are going to put that in the cash receipts. The cash disbursements are the vouchers, the expenses that you have already incurred and requested to be paid from the USAID. The difference is the cash receipts has both sides, the advances and the disbursements. The cash disbursements are the amounts that we have already settled with you if you are receiving cash, and the amounts that we paid for you if you don't have cash on hand. That's the cash on hand. Cash on hand is the amounts of money that was paid by the USAID and we did not get liquidations for, or we didn't get reports for expenditures against these amounts. Here, also the federal expenditures and unobligated balances. This part, total federal funds authorized. For example, your grant is for 500 million. This is the authorized for this grant. The federal share of expenditures, these are the expenditures that we have already paid regarding this. Why does it say share? Because sometimes there are cost share with other people, so the federal share is USAID share. So USAID has authorized 50 million or 500 million. The share of the expenditures is is this part, is this amount 100 million, sorry, 500, yeah, okay, 100 million. And then federal share of unliquidated obligations. What's the obligations amount? Actually, when we authorize for a grant 500 million, for example, we do not obligate all this amount. And it's mentioned in your award that you are authorized for this amount, but for this period, for example, from January 2020 till January 2021, we have obligated 100 million out of this 500 million for you to expend. So this is the obligated amount for you for this year. So the federal share of unliquidated obligations, here we will say the difference between the authorized funds and the expenditures and the unobligated amounts, because you know, for example, as we said, 500 million, you was obligated for 100 million, your expenditures was 5 million, for example. So the expenditures and the unobligated are the total federal share. What are the unobligated balance of federal funds? The funds, the 500 million, for example, and of course, minus G, which is the obligated of the expenses, minus the expenses. So the total share should be 500 million, for example, and then the federal share of expenditures, you expended 5 million. And of course, I'm talking about numbers and I can't make it easy for you to read here, but by all means, here are the total federal funds authorized are the total grant, that the total amount that you were granted. The federal share of expenditures, that's your share, the USAID share in your grant or cooperative agreement. The federal share of unliquidated obligations, that's the difference between your expenditures and the obligated amounts in your award. The total federal share is E, the sum of E and F, the expenditures and the unobligated amount. And the unobligated balance of federal funds is D minus G. So the total funds minus the unliquidated, minus the total federal share. Here, the recipient share, that if we have a cooperative, cost share. So the cost share here, if you have cost share, what is your your share as a recipient or as an awardee? The recipient share of expenditures, how much money did you paid already through the expenditures, and how much is the remaining amount of your share. Program income, that if your program is incurring any income, which I believe that most of the USAID are not doing any program income, but if there is, so if there is an income, you put the earned amount in I, and then the program income expended in accordance with the deduction, alternate or addition alternative, and then the unexpended program income that's the total of I, which is the total income, minus either it was deducted or added to the account. Now we are going to go to the advances. Of course, as I said, that based on your award or grant, you have to read it very well and to know whether you are authorized to have advances or not. So what is the advance? The advance is any type of payment that is made ahead of its normal schedule. So you need money to do that program, then you request money in advance to help you do that program. So the most important things about the advances that you have to know about USAID, that USAID does not give advance more than cash needs for only 30 days. And these advances should be put in an interest-bearing account. What are, okay, some of the awards, if not all, they require a quarterly advance report or a quarterly report. How do we apply for that? Yes, when you send your vouchers as quarterly, so you're covering 3 months, yes, we receive these vouchers, but we don't pay them all in all. We pay month by month. And that's why we will see down how to submit for your cash, advance requests. To apply for advance, what are the required documents to submit for the advance request? Of course, again, SF 1034 approved, and that's Egypt practice, and I believe most of the missions as well. SF 270, and any extra documents that is required by the grant or the award. Here is the SF 270. Of course, here the recipient organization information, and here the name, the payee name, of course, that's USAID. Here, the period covered by this request. You have to identify which period you are talking about, for example, January to March, October to December. The period covered by this request should be mentioned here. Of course, you go here, you have to check the advance part and cash-based requests. We come how to fill this form. Here, this form, it's a compute of amount reimbursements and advances requests. So the total program outlays to date, that's your expenses from the day you started your grant or agreement. Here, cumulative program income, that's if there is any income that comes to your program. Net program outlays A minus B. Of course, most of us, most of the USAID grants or cooperative agreements, we don't have income because this is a non-profit organization. So I don't know, but I think that most of the programs doesn't have income. Net program outlays, that's if there is an income plus minus your expense, that's the net outlays. That's the net that you have paid out of pocket, or that's the net expenses that you did. Estimated net cash outlays for advance period. In D here, if you, it's not if, when you are requesting for the advance, you have to put your estimate for the expenses of the period covered. For example, we are talking about January to March. You have to put your advance here, the amount that you think you need for the total period. And then here, total sum of lines C and D, C and D, that's the total, the expenditures that you have already expended and the needed advance that you need. That's the total you are requesting from USAID. Non-federal share, of course, as we said, if there is a cost share with anyone, this is the share of their costs. Here we will put, if we have a cost share, we will put the amount that person with us here, your share here as the expenditures, and here the federal share of line E. Federal payments previously requested. Here means the expenses that you have already requested and USAID paid for. So, for example, you have been requesting for 50,000, we have already paid 30, so these are the expenditures that we have already paid for. So, federal payments previously requested. The federal share now requests line G minus line H. Line G, that's the federal share minus the payments that we have already paid. That's the advance that you are going to request. So if your expenses, let's say 100,000 here, you have no income, it will be the same 100 here. You are requesting for 50,000, for example, as cash advances. So it's going to be here 50, and then here the share, the total is 150. You have already received, let's say 80, and you are requesting for 50. So the total the total advance that you need here is 20,000, because you have, 70,000, because you have already, you are requesting for 50. You have been, you asked already paid for 80,000, and then you still have here are requesting 70. But the 70 here are not going to be paid as 70, because you have, you are requesting 50. So we are going to pay the 70. I know that I might be giving difficulties for the people when I talk about numbers. So I'm so sorry, I'm not going to do that again. But by all means, this is the total program is the expenses. The outlays here is still your expenses, and if there is any income, it's going to be subtracted. Here, the total advance that you are requesting, and here the total share of C and D, the expenditures and the advances. And here, when you do all the calculations, you will have your advance request here.
Great. Irene, I have a couple of questions that I think now would be a good time to ask you. I have 2 questions came in that are relevant right now. Does the federal share of expenditure include actual cash payments plus accruals plus commitments?
Again, the federal share.
Does it include actual cash payments plus accruals plus commitments? What does the federal share of expenditure include?
In this form, it's just the expenditures and the advances.
Okay.
In this form.
Okay, and then a question on the forms. Where'd that go? For fund advance request, should either SF 1034 or SF 270 be used, or both?
Actually, we use both, because as you can see here, the advance is going to be divided by 3 months. And as I said, we don't pay quarterly, and I mean that we are not paying the 3 months as a total. So we are going to pay month by month. So it's preferable to have the SF 1034 along with the 270 to determine, as I said, the currency of the payment and the amount for specified month.
Okay, and one more question. Can you please explain how a partner determines the amount of the advance?
The amount of the advance, each partner, for example, knows his or her award, what they are requested to do for the coming months. For example, I'm a grantee, and I'm going to have multiple presentations. I'm going to have multiple events coming forward. I know an estimate for all these events, plus the whatever in my award the USAID is going to pay me on monthly basis. So I have my monthly expenses, normal monthly expenses that the USAID has granted me, plus, for example, if any extra amounts of money I'm going to need to do the requested presentations, requested tasks from me to implement the requested things from me, I'm going to put that as an advance. For example, I have salaries for 50,000 and they're requesting the 50. So it's the 50 is always the case, because these are my monthly expenses, plus if any needed amounts of money for extra tasks I'm gonna do for this month. This is the estimate. This is my estimate. I know my expenses for the month. that the USAID has approved for me. If I have any extra tasks that are needed and I have to fulfill and I need the money to have it, so be it, I put that as an advance.
And do people have to provide a justification why the extra money above the monthly average is requested?
It has to be between the COR, AOR, and the grantee or awardee. And then if the FM requires more clarification or clearances, we go to the AOR, COR.
Thank you. One more question. Can you include expenditure accrued but not yet paid in cash disbursements?
In cash disbursements. I have to go back, request answer for that question and come back to you. I don't want
we'll
to answer
respond
something
in
that I'm not
writing
sure.
to that one. That's great. Okay. I'll ask you another batch when a few questions come in. Thank you.
You're welcome. And here is another way how to calculate your advance. It's estimated federal cash outlays that will be made during period covered by the advance. So I know my expenses from January to March, it's going to be around 30,000, and then I have cash on hand of 20. So the difference is what I request for. So if I have cash on hand, for example, I requested 100,000, and then again, I'm using numbers, I'm sorry. I'm requesting amount of money and I have already expended and still have cash on hand. I have to put that cash on hand in mind when I'm requesting the coming advance. So that's why here we have the estimate federal cash outlays, and then here are the cash on hand. That's the money that I did not liquidate with USAID yet, and the difference here is the amount requested for the advances. And here is the certification where the grantee certifies for his requests. Here, this is a monthly advance. I was talking about the advances and liquidations and cash on hand. I need to be more clearer about this part. The advances, as we said, is the amount of money that we pay in advance for the grantee, for the awardee to meet all their required tasks. But do I give them the money and that's it? Of course, no. When I give advance, I'm waiting for a voucher with the expenses that that grantee did. So for the advances, we have monthly advances and quarterly advances, and this is based on the award. It should be written in the award. So for example, the award says that we have a monthly reporting. I have to report monthly of my expenditures to get my money. So of course, when I'm requesting for an advance, I'm gonna request month by month. And here, for example, we are advance period. For example, the people are requesting for January advance. So they have to submit the request early before January because they need this money to be paid during the month of January. So they submit it between 1st of December and the 10th of December. Why is that? To give sufficient time for the voucher examiners and the ACO to review and approve their requests. And then we pay, USAID pays the money between 15 and 20 of the month. But again, we have already paid the money. We need to liquidate, or we need the expenditure report to see how did you expend the money of the USAID. So we request the grantee to submit an expenditure report, which we call a liquidation by the end of the following month. So it was a January advance. As you can see here, it was a January advance. You requested the vendor or the awardee requested in December. We paid it also in December. You have all January to expend and whole February to settle your accounts and know exactly your expenditures, and you have to submit an expenditure report to the USAID to liquidate your advance by the end of February. And so does we for February. February, you are requesting for February, you have to do it in January. We pay it in mid-January, and we request that you submit for your liquidation by the end of March. So we give you whole February and whole March to settle your accounts. And then you come and request March. Sorry, this is the monthly. When you're requesting March, as you can see, I have to review whether you submitted here expenditure report or not. If you did not submit for January, I will not be able to give you for March because you did not give me any expenditure report. So when you receive advances, please make sure that you have to liquidate in timely manner. Based on your award or cooperative agreement, if it's a monthly, please submit your expenditure reports on monthly basis. If it's a quarterly, we are going to give you the whole quarter, the whole 3 months, as in this slide. From January to March, we pay the whole thing and we wait for expenditures report by April 30th. After April 30th, we have to have an expenditure report, or else we are not going to give part of the following quarter. As we said, we pay here on monthly basis. So for January, we paid in December. For February, we paid in January, and for March, we paid in on February. And then for April, we paid in March, but in April, we are not going to pay May unless we receive the advance liquidation or the expenditures report. Here, this slide is talking about the frequency of submitting the liquidations. And as I said, it depends on the agreement, whether it's monthly basis or a quarterly basis, and as per your actual expenses. So I mean that when you take 1,000, you cannot just submit 1,000 for the liquidation. You have to how did the submission of any voucher.
Irene, you're going to need to repeat that. You broke up a little bit and we didn't hear your last 2 sentences.
I was cut.
Yes.
Okay. So again, as per the award, you have to submit for your actual expenses to liquidate for your advances. Also submit the vouchers as per the payment terms. In your award, as I said previously, you have to review very well your agreement or your cooperative, your grant. You have to read the award very well to know what are the payment terms, what are the required documents, everything that is mentioned. This is in the award. This is our basis. We have to look for these in the voucher to approve and certify and pay the money. Points of discussion. What if we have excessive cash on hand? For example, you requested, again, numbers, I'm sorry, you requested for $100. I'm gonna go numbers, small numbers, so that I can concentrate with you and you can concentrate with me. Let's say $100, and you expended just $20. And you keep requesting $100 for each month, but your expenditures is just $20. So by the end of the month, you have still $80 you did not expend. This is excessive cash on hand. So when you request for the following month as well for 100, I say, okay, you have already 80, so I will just give you Out of the 100, I'm going to give you 20 because you have already 80 and you are requesting for 100, so I'll give you only the difference. If you remember when we were in the 270, it said the cash on hand. If you have any cash on hand, we are going to deduct it from the advance that you have. And of course, if you do not submit the expenses, the vouchers, and the liquidations in a timely manner, we are going to stop paying the advances because you already have money that you don't, for us, you did not expend. Although you are expending, but for USAID, since you did not submit any voucher, you did not expend. So you have all this cash on hand, so we are not going to pay any more advances without having liquidations. Of course, it's not the decision of the voucher examiner to say we are paying or we are not paying. For us, we have to go back to the COR, AOR, to communicate with them and communicate with the grantee or awardee to get us vouchers or to get clarification on what's going on with your grant or award. Because of course, the CORs are the most aware people of your grant or award and how the work is going on. I have finished my presentation. Excuse me if there were some misleading numbers. Of course, because I don't have the numbers in front of me, this is very huge problem for me. But please, if you have any questions or anything was not very clear, please, I'm here for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Irene. We do have some questions, and thank you for your great presentation. We really appreciate it. So there are some points of clarification, and the first one is, could you please explain again the accountability dates?
Accountability dates. Okay. The accountability dates are the dates that USAID expect the people to give us the expenditure reports that they have for the amounts of advances that they received. So, for example, I took an advance. I shouldn't keep the money for more than 1 month. But again, I'm giving you the 1 month, but I am requesting you to submit a report quarterly. So I will give you 3 months to expend the amounts I'm giving you. And I'm giving you another month to review all, to calculate all your expenses, to review all your documents, to give me an expenditure report, final one. And you have to submit it to USAID for us to liquidate. The accountability date, this is a date that we set on our system to follow if we don't receive the expenditure report. We have to follow with the COR, AOR, and with the awardee to get these reports. So these accountability dates are the final dates that the awardee should give us the report. After that, we are going to follow on these reports, asking them to submit. If they submit, we are liquidating, we are going in our normal process. Sometimes if the awardee is not responding and is not sending any expenses reports, we stop paying any advances or expenditures anymore.
Okay.
Is that clear now?
I think so. If we get more questions in the chat, I'll let you know. Another question is, how long does it take for the advance to be dispersed?
It depends upon whether you are receiving it through your USDO or Treasury. I mean, the awardee or the grantee is in US, so the payment would take 2 to 3 days after we process in our office. So it takes between the normal circle of the voucher is 15 days. So we might add sometimes 2 or 3 days for the payment to be put in the accounts, or if it's through another disbursing office, not through Treasury, it takes around 10 days of 10 working days, because this is the banks. This is not USAID at all. This is the banks.
Okay.
Transfer through the banks.
Okay, and another question on advance. The presenter mentioned two types of advances, cash advance and accrual. What is accrual advance?
I'm sorry, I didn't, maybe I mentioned the accrual, there is nothing called accrual advance. Actually, the advance is a money that you need to pay, need this money to do your expenses for the month. There is no accruals in the advance.
Okay. I have a lot of questions here, so I'm just going to read through them. Are deposits paid to suppliers included in the federal share of expenses? Deposits.
Again, sorry, our deposit.
Are deposits. So you have a service provider, you've given them a 20% deposit, but you haven't received the service or paid for the service entirely. Are those deposits included in your expenses?
Yes, of course. It is expenditures for you. You have already expended it.
The presenter, here's another one. The presenter said advances are only monthly, but what is the need to do quarterly advances then?
As I mentioned, we pay it monthly. For the payment, we pay monthly. And as I mentioned, quarterly or monthly requests for the awardee, this depends on the award. It's not the voucher examiner, but the rules and regulations of the USAID, we cannot pay more than cash needs of 30 days for the guarantee. So when they give us 3 months, at least we know that they need this for 3 months, but we are going to pay month by month because we cannot pay more than cash needs of 30 days. Okay. And as for the award, if it's mentioned quarterly, if they need to submit monthly, okay, but then they will liquidate quarterly.
And is it possible to submit special advance requests during time of special cash needs other than the advance request?
I think that should be discussed with the COR AOR before coming to the US to FM, and upon the approval of the COR AOR, I think it might be, but that's it. If for example they are requesting this for let's say an event that they know they are going to do, why shouldn't they add that to their monthly advance request? But anyway, if the COR AOR approves for this advance, yes, we can pay it.
Okay. Is it allowed to share IP's statement of account that will reflect all submitted advances and liquidations to date?
Submit
the IP statement of account. So I'm not sure how they're defining that. If Ismail Sultan could add to his question, are you asking about submitting copies of your ledger or your bank statements? We'll come back to that if you expand on your question. Next question is, what happens if the agreement requires quarterly liquidation, but at the beginning of the implementation, the funds are requested on a monthly basis?
At the beginning, they requested for monthly basis, and they had. Let me clarify more about this question again, please. Could you read it again?
What happens if the agreement requires a quarterly liquidation at the beginning of the implementation? The funds are requested on a monthly basis. So it seems like the funds are requested on a monthly basis, but they still have to submit a quarterly liquidation.
It's okay. They want to submit. We don't have any problem with that. As soon as they are liquidating, of course, we are paying monthly advances. If they are not having advances and they are requesting monthly expenses, we are going to pay it. It's okay. I don't see anything that can stop us from doing that.
Okay, and there's a question of, can you go over the SF-270 in comparison to the SF-1034? I think people need some some just simple clarification on the purpose of the different forms.
Okay. To make it easy for you, it's the SF 1034 is just a simple form to catch the basics of the voucher. For example, the payee, the contract number, your account number, at least for the first voucher that you're submitting, the number of the voucher. This is the basic information of your award. And here, it's the basic information of your invoice, the period covered by that, that invoice. For example, January, from when to when in January, January expenses, and as we said, the amount and the total amount required and the currency. And that's all in this SF 1034. As for the 270, when we are requesting for 3 advances, to make it clearer and easier for the voucher examiner and the COR who are reviewing, we prefer to have 1034 for each month. For example, I'm requesting advance for December with this amount. I'm requesting for November with this amount. I'm requesting for October for this amount. And here, as you can see in the 270, here you have it as a total, either here as a total or here as month by month. So the 1034 is mostly a covering, like a cover letter, just to simplify what you are requesting, to make it easier for those who are viewing the voucher. And that's it.
Okay. What would the decision be if the amount requested in an advance for 3 months is more than the obligated amount in a year?
We are not going to pay. We are just going to go back to the COR and discuss with them. And of course, we cannot pay over the obligations. Any obligated amount, we can never go over it. We won't find the money. So we never pay over the obligated amount. So for those, for your FM, they have to review the obligated amount for them. And if you know, for example, that the next month you are going to request over than the obligated amount, you have to go back to your contracting office and request for funds. And this is called incremental funding to add parts of the unobligated amounts of your award. Was it clear?
Yes, very clear. So this one may need some interpretation. We have been receiving the ROE information for April and May, but it has not been attached to an approved SF 1034. Doesn't this increase the likelihood of errors? Should we not be receiving them at the same time?
I'm sorry, again?
I think this person needs to clarify the question.
ROE is the expenses.
Okay, so you've been they've been receiving the expenses for April to May, but they have not attached them to the approved, to the SF 1034. Should they be sending them at the same time?
Okay, as it's written in my presentation, and as I mentioned, the SF 1034 is preferable. If it's not in the award, I cannot request the vendor or reject the voucher if it doesn't have the 1034. If it's not in the award, I cannot request it from them. I say it's a preferable practice. Through all the missions, it's a preferable practice. If it's mentioned in the award, it should be there. If it's not, I cannot reject the voucher without the SF 1034. So the person who sent that question has to go back to the award that he is working on, see what are the requested or required documents for the voucher. If the SF 1034 is there, he has to reject the voucher and tell the awardee that they have to submit as per the award. If it's not there, he has to process the voucher normally.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Next question. Is it okay to account for commitments not paid to the date of liquidation?
I think no, but please give me more time to come back with the most accurate answer.
Okay, this person would like you to move to the SF-425 form. Maybe we can leave that form on the screen as we move forward.
425, which part?
They want to study the screen. So that's part 1. Can you go to part 2?
Okay. That's, now you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is part 2.
Is there any more to the form?
Sorry?
Is there more to the form? Is there a part 3? No, okay.
No.
Okay. Next question is it similar, that financial recording or reporting process, with presentation and responses? I don't understand that question. I'm sorry.
Neither do I.
Okay, this is another clarification. The presenter says you need to complete both the SF-1034 and SF-270 to request for cash advance. Is it a change of requirements, or has it always been like that? This is because we have just been using the 1034 for our monthly requests.
Again, what? I'm sorry. Again, the question, please.
Are they required to submit the 270 with the 1034? Because they've only been submitting the 1034 to date.
As I mentioned, it's as per the award. If it's just mentioning the 1034, so be it. I cannot request something that is not in the award.
Okay. This participant says, I have noticed that the advances are dispersed 2 weeks before the actual month. Example, the January advance was dispersed on December 15th. Is that the mission best practice, or it's what is supposed to be the USAID standard? So they say that your mission does this. Is that the USAID standard?
It's the preferable practice. You mean here paid before the advance? Mm-hmm. The payment, yes? Or yeah. Yes, of course. We try to pay. We need the money to reach the implementing partner before the beginning of the month. That's why we try to pay 2 weeks before the month.
I think this participant may be asking, can they go back to USAID and ask them to please send the advances 2 weeks before the month for their cash flow? Would they have any justification for asking for that? Asking
before the month?
Yes.
They have to submit before the month. I can't request advance for January during January. I'm already expending. So how would I say I don't have money and I'm already expending? So we have to request for January before January starts. I need this money to expend during January. Okay. So that's why we submit in December, and we put a minimum of 15 days to process or the payment to reach the implementing partner before the beginning of the month, not to give them any problems with the cash flow.
Okay. I would suggest to participants, if they're not getting their advances ahead of time, it's to communicate with the AOR COR to see what can be put in process to assist you. Next question. Can you please explain the difference between cash receipts and cash disbursement?
Cash receipts is all the amounts of money that you have received from USAID, either as a disbursement or expenditures that you submitted vouchers with and you took the money, and the advances that you received. For example, you requested advances for a quarter, January, February, March, but then by April, you did not need cash, so you just expended. This is an expenditure report that we just pay, and we pay advances. So the cash advances is the only advances that you did not liquidate. These are advances. The cash receipts from the USAID is the advances plus the disbursements that you have. So all the amounts of money that USAID had put in your account, this is the USAID cash that you received, cash receipts. The cash advances are the only part of the advances that you received from us. So you got the difference, or maybe this person needs more clarification?
Please enter into the Q&A if you need more clarification. The next question goes back to the previous question and is an example. If you are on a monthly reporting and you've made your request and submitted your voucher for the previous month on time, but you don't get the funds from USAID until the 15th of the month that you're implementing, and then you're expected to submit your voucher at the end of the same month, what is the implication of not submitting since you have not spent all the funds as expected? So you only had 15 days to spend the funds because they got their advance in the middle of the month. And you haven't obviously spent all the funding, but you have to submit your voucher. What should an implementing partner do in that situation?
No, again, the question, please, because I think there is misunderstanding here. Again, the question, please.
The situation is if a partner receives their advance in the middle of the month that they're actually implementing, not 2 weeks before. And so they don't have the full amount of time to spend the money, and yet they're required to send another liquidation and an advance request. How should they handle that?
We give, as you can see from this screen, we give them almost 2 months to liquidate. So we give the money here for example, here in December 15, they receive the money maybe by the beginning of January. So they have the full January to liquidate and the full February, and after February they have to submit. So they have actually a full month to expend and almost a full month to liquidate or send the expenditures. So I think it's more than enough. And actually when, for example, they request January, I give also the advance of February without waiting for the liquidation of January, but I can't give the March advance without getting the liquidation of January. So I give them more than 2 months to liquidate. So how come I give them enough period of time for them to liquidate?
Okay, I'm going to have 2 more questions for you, and then we're going to move to the next presenter. We'll get to the rest of the questions after the next presenter. So the next 2 questions is, our USAID office has never asked us to submit the SF-270 form. Should we start doing it now?
Again, if it's in your award, please do. If it's not, I cannot request you to do it.
Okay, and I'm going to ask this question and we may answer it at the end. Is the use of USAID fund for purchase of personal protective equipment during the COVID-19 pandemic an allowable cost? So I think we'll let Debbie and Callie answer that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and we'll answer that at the end of the next presentation. So thank you so much, Irene, for all of your knowledge and your experience and sharing it with the 210 participants on the call. We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move over to Foundation for Professional Development, which is a local partner in South Africa, and they have a lot of experience in submitting these forms, and they're going to share their experiences and some examples of the forms with numbers in it. So over to you, Sandra.
Hi, good day, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so first of all,
Can you go to slideshow and start from the beginning?
Yes. Sorry. Better.
Better, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, Irene has covered a lot of it, so I'll basically just give you some examples of what we report on a monthly basis. What she's also mentioned already is that it's wise to know your award and what the donor requirements are, especially to monthly reporting. Also, another thing that we found is that it is very useful if you can align your financial system to these requirements for easy reporting so that you don't get caught up in time. For FPD, we close our finances for the current month between the 7th and 10th of the following month. We have proper procedures in place in order to ensure that all expenses are captured and everything has been processed, all the timesheets have been submitted so that we can close off and can submit our, run our reports in order to get to the submission to USAID. On a monthly basis, we submit two 1034 public vouchers, one to show the expenditure and one to request an advance. It's also important to note that all these supporting documents should be kept safe. For FPD, we keep it in a file at the office, but the general ledger printout and electronic copies of supporting documentation can be made available at any time. So this is an example of our 1034 public voucher. It refers, I've used the February reporting as an example. That's what we expend. All the relevant sections have been completed, as Irene explained, and it's been signed by an authorized official. Okay, together with the SF 1034, we also submit a more detailed expenditure report. You'll see that that amount agrees to what's on the SF 1034. And this is aligned to our budgeted or awarded budget per line item. This might differ for each award. It depends on what your budget line items look like. But yeah, this is just to track the total expenditure against the approved budget. And again, it's signed by an authorized official. This is our public voucher for the advance. You'll see there we've requested that amount. All the sections completed. We usually we look at the past, the average expenditure of the past 3 months and also our cash on hand. Based on that, we make projections for the advance. We often consult with our program implementers because they would know of extraordinary activities coming up that we in finance might not know about. Because USAID might query if the advance request is higher than usual. And then if it is, and you can explain, it's best to communicate this with your AOR. Okay, together with the advance request, we just give a detailed breakdown of what the advance request per cost category is made up of. Yeah, this is fairly straightforward and it's linked to our approved budget. So yeah, just some tips to remember. We've mentioned that you should understand the reporting requirements. Try to align your financial system to these requirements. Also, monitor your expenditure on a monthly basis. Discuss these with your program implementers to make sure that you don't get into a cash flow situation. And then keep all the supporting documents And I think most importantly, keep the annual audits in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. That was nice and short and very clear. Let's go back to the Q&A. Irene, I have a lot more questions for you. And then if we don't get to all the questions, we will write them all up and respond in writing. So one question is, for the liquidation, is it normal to submit the reporting documents along with the liquidation report?
Again, I'm sorry, they have.
Do you have to send in the supporting documents, or do you just have to send in the form?
The forms are the required. If you have supporting documents to help the voucher examiner, of course, that's more than welcome. If it's a requirement, they have to be there. If it's not, it's up to the implementing partner whether they want to put supporting documents to clarify the things for us. That would be more than welcome for us.
Okay. In the SF-425, can I include expenses incurred but not yet paid out in cash disbursement?
That's the accruals.
Yes. So the answer is yes. You would include them in the accruals.
Yeah.
We do have a few more questions about people receiving their advances during the month of implementation. So I think this is an issue that we'll address and try to get a sense from local partners on this call of how frequently that happens to you, so we can give USAID some feedback here. I know it's impossible to implement if you don't have the cash on hand. Can you?
I'm sorry, for USAID, normally you have a time frame to process the vouchers that we receive. So if they submit early enough for us to do, they will receive the funds before the beginning of the month.
Okay. This is another clarification. Can you please clarify cash receipt and disbursed?
Cash receipt, all the amounts that we received from the USAID, including the advances. These are cash receipts. You received money. Cash disbursements, these are the disbursements that you did and you get reimbursed for.
Okay. Next question is, if a grantee has too much money on hand and they keep asking for more advances, who should determine not to give the advance, the AOR or the voucher examiner?
The voucher examiner, because we have the reports, but we cannot say that and just that's it. No, we have to go back to the COR, AOR and discuss with them. And when we get their concurrence on stopping the payment, we do. But the COR has to be informed and concur on that.
Okay. A lot of these questions are repeats of other questions. So Callie and Debbie, could we turn over to you and to get some clarification on the important question of, can we use USAID funds for purchase of personal protective equipment during the COVID-19 pandemic? Are they included as an allowable cost?
Thanks, Catherine. So this is an evolving issue. And actually what I'm gonna do is ask our partners to closely track the SGAC guidance. And let's see if I can just pull it up. So you'll find this guidance on the SGAC website. And as I mentioned before, it's updated regularly. And then if you scroll down, you see there's a tremendous amount of guidance here. If you scroll down to page 32, there's a section on supply chain and personal protective equipment. And so the current guidance says there's currently a worldwide shortage of PPE. PEPFAR has not procured PPE in large quantities in the past and cannot ensure appropriate or adequate supply. We are asking teams to seek alternative sources at this time. It is important that health workers providing ART services in areas impacted by COVID use PPE to protect against self-exposure and transmitting to our highly vulnerable population. And there's a few more sentences here, but and some resources. So what I recommend is that you continue to check this guidance because I do think it will be updated regularly.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. So we've had a couple of questions from the beginning of the call till now about the difference between fixed amount awards and cooperative agreements. And so I was hoping the Ethiopia team could talk about the requirements that your fixed amount award grantees have in terms of submitting requests for reimbursements. And Tisfaye and Tisgai, I think you're both on the call. If you could unmute and share your perspective on that. The question came up multiple times.
Okay. Tisfaye, are you online?
Yes, we can hear you. Oh, he
Okay.
is online, but on mute.
Okay. So thank you for the question. The fixed amount grant and also the cooperative agreement, that is a fixed amount grant. The most challenging thing is there is a milestone. So they are required to fulfill their milestone and they're requesting reimbursement. After they achieve that milestone, we'll release the money. But the cooperative agreement regarding for the local implement partners, they request advance. So it's an advantage compared with, in my perspective or in my experience, the cooperative agreement is much better than the fixed amount grant. Maybe the fixed amount grant, that is their money after we release them, the risk is on them. But the cooperative one, they request advance, so they have also time to request and process it. But the fixed amount, it's required to submit monthly, and they are expecting to attach their achievement by monthly. So we reviewed their progress reports, their monthly progress achievement, and whether we checked whether they have achieved the milestone or not. And they are also required to attach when they send the progress report, when they submit it when they request the payment as well. So that is the difference in my understanding. So it's a little bit, the fixed amount grant is more, it has a lot of tasks, I think, particularly for the AOR. And we have to go and so check whether they're achieved or not, that milestone. So a situation like currently, it's very difficult to go out the field and so whether they achieved or not to check their milestone or not. So it's a little bit more, more work than compared with cooperative agreements. The cooperative agreement has some room in my perspective.
Thank you so much. That question certainly came up. So we don't have additional questions that are different than what we've asked already. So I think unless any of the presenters want to make a final comment, we can move to Debbie and Callie to close the meeting.
Catherine, did you want any financial comments?
Yes, Doug, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I forgot about that section. My apologies.
Sure. Okay, well, thanks very much to Irene and Sandra. I think that was fantastic. I did take a few notes during the discussion, and I think our role here as Sustainability Solutions is to help provide a compliance financial management perspective that might go along with the submissions of these and how they fit into a bigger picture of your compliance and your potential audit. So just wanted to raise a few points. and that both Irene and Sandra showed disbursement reports and liquidation reports, and realized that your liquidation reports essentially are the components that will build your fund accountability statement for your audit. Okay, I mean, what is your fund accountability statement, which is what you recipients have to prepare for your auditors based on your fiscal year? That is simply 12 months of expenditures. So although, as Irene said, you don't necessarily have to submit your vouchers and documents with your submission to the mission, you certainly do need those available for your auditors. That's one of the requirements under your mandatory standard provision number 1, which comes attached to your award. So please make sure. So essentially, you are building your fund accountability statement as your year progresses. Okay, don't wait until the end of the year to start. Do it as you go along. Okay. Secondly, talking about the actual, it's very important that recipients reconcile your receipts with the mission. Okay, realize that what happens is when the auditor is going to start auditing your fund accountability statement, they will check with the mission to say, dear mission, how much did you give this implementing partner? And if the mission says we gave them $10 million and the implementing partner says, well, our records say 9, then you're starting off on a bad foot. Okay, you certainly, recipients want to reconcile with the Office of Financial Management, the controllers group, how much, let's agree on how much you gave us, the implementing partner. Because remember, your fiscal year could be different from the US government's year. The US government's year is October 1st through September 30. Yours could be December 31st, March year end, June, whatever. It's your fiscal year that matters, okay? And certainly the US government isn't necessarily thinking about your fiscal year. They care more about theirs, okay? What we talked a lot here about local currency, and of course your submissions on your forms are in dollars. We haven't really talked about exchange rates. And exchange rates are pretty important because although your budget may have gone in at X local currency per dollar, certainly as the dollar is strong, as currencies depreciate, you are getting more local currency for your dollar. So there's multiple ways to sort of do it. But at the end of the day, when you're doing your liquidation reports, that should be as close as possible to the actual rate that you drew down at. And people talk about the FIFO method and weighted average method. There's a few different ways to do it. But conceptually, it's very important to realize under a cooperative agreement, there is no profit. Okay, there's no rainy day money. There's no extra money left over. As Irene said, you draw the money down. That's why they give you 30 days to spend it, and you're supposed to spend it and not have any left over. So certainly at the end of each year, your auditors will be checking that you've spent the money, and at the end of the project, when you're closed out, you'll have to return any remaining funds. Okay, a couple other points. It's important to, okay, we talked a little bit about primes and subs, but realize if you're a prime, let me just get into it. Let me just try to share a screen here, because these are slides from a previous presentation we did. And is that slide showing there, Catherine?
Not yet.
I think I did share slides. 1 second, please. Let's go here. Share. There we go. Is that up?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let me just jump into the, so if you can see that, let's go to slideshow from current slide. Okay, so here it talks about, and we did this in the last one, and we'll do this again on May 20th, but conceptually here, we've been looking about USAID giving funds to the prime, okay, which is great. We've talked about all of that, but how about when the prime's giving it to a sub? Okay, so prime, remember, you are responsible for all funds passing through you to the subs, meaning the large subs, more than 750, small subs under 750. But regardless, even though you may not need to submit your all the documentation to USAID, you certainly as a prime, because you're at risk, you want to make sure that your subs are giving you confidence that what they're sharing with, well, put it this way, that they're documenting their expenditures, because you're responsible for managing those subs. However, these guys could be audited by a different auditor. And if you have not done your job, those auditors will say to you, sorry, these are not good costs, and you're responsible to USAID. So I think that's quite important. We did talk about fixed amount awards, and Sagai did talk about them. I just wanted to comment. One of and USAID has fantastic guidance on this. And the important point on a fixed amount award is all the work is done up front, where you, the recipient, eventual recipient, has to explain what these funds are going to be used for, and then create the milestones. Yeah, but then after that, as he said, you're paid based on the milestones, and you're not submitting any documentation. A fixed amount award is not audited, okay? But you do have to you do have to deliver. A fixed amount award is limited to 3 years in duration, okay? If USAID makes an award to a recipient, there is no limit on the amount. If a prime makes a fixed amount award to a sub, it's limited to it's called the, well, it's $250,000, the simplified acquisition threshold. Okay, that's just some of the points I had.
I have 2 questions for you.
Great.
If a partner receives $500,000 from a fixed amount award and another $300,000 as a sub in a single year, are they subjected to the ADS 591 audit?
No. Fixed amount award is not audited, just like your 10% de minimis is not audited. So no, okay. It's got to be, well, let's call it unencumbered or just normal cooperative agreement.
Okay, and I have a question that maybe Sagai will have to answer as well. In a fixed amount award, if the milestone is 45% of a particular target, 45% for $50,000, and you've only reached 37%. Does USAID pay at 37%?
Is that for me?
So yes, Sagai, if an FAA, if the milestone was to achieve 45%, but they only achieved 37%, how would you respond to that?
We're paying for them what they achieved.
You broke up a little bit. I think you said you'll pay for what they achieved.
Yes.
Okay, so you would pay for the 37%.
Exactly. Like I mentioned, currently what we face now, because of this COVID issue, there are many activities that are suspended, particularly for the agreements for FAA. So we're not going to pay. They cannot pay because they're not doing those activities. When they submit the funds, they reduce some costs and just claiming only what they achieved.
Okay, you broke up a little bit. I think you said that because of COVID-19, you understand that a lot of the milestones cannot be met right now.
Yes, and we only pay what they achieved. For example, when we pay for the full amount when they achieve 80% and above. That's a monthly basis. And we pay for monthly, by the way.
Perhaps you could put your headset on because we're having great difficulty understanding you, and I don't want to miss your answer.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Better, yes.
Okay. Well, the payment monthly, not quarterly or biannually. So they are they're supposed to submit their monthly progress report, and they're expecting to achieve 80% of their. We put the milestones, those milestones based on the milestone. When we paid for them full amount when they achieved 80% and above milestones.
Okay.
Just I mentioned example the current situation. They cannot achieve 80% and above their milestone. So we are just paying for them only what they achieved. Those suspended amount, maybe if they do that next month or after next month, we can pay them the full amount plus the remaining amount of this month. So we paid what they achieved.
Okay, and another question on it. in a fixed amount award, it can be stressful because at times the milestones are not met, and we just talked about that. But sometimes the milestones aren't met because they don't have the necessary equipment. So perhaps a lack of reagents for testing. So they don't have the reagents for testing, so they're not going to achieve their targets.
Yes, yeah, we consider that. So we cannot claim if they are not, for instance, if they are not testing, not making testing, they cannot claim the testing amount budget because they're not doing that. Maybe after some weeks or some months, if they can get tests and test kits and also double their their testing target, we will pay for that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
No? Okay.
Let me just add to that, Catherine, that USAID under the ADS 303 has 3 different documents that are pretty clear on when it is appropriate or not to use the fixed amount award. And it's meant to be where there isn't going to be a lot of potential for non-delivery. So it's not for everything. It's not for everybody. And certainly there's very good guidance on that. So obviously, you know, we're in a very unique situation right now with COVID, but yeah, and as we say, you know, partial payments and stuff. But other than that, it's pretty clear when they will or won't or can't pay. So it's you're supposed to have, you sit with your AOR essentially and design those milestones to be able to deliver on your plan.
Yeah. Thank you. That's good.
Okay, thank you, Doug and Guy, to answer those questions. Irene, did you want to add to that?
Yes, please. No, actually, I wanted to comment about Doug's point for the currency of the liquidation and the advance.
Yes.
Normally, when we request the voucher should be submitted in the currency approved in the award. And whenever we, for example, request an advance in dollar, the liquidation should be in the same currency. And so does, if it's in the local currency, the liquidation as well should be in the local currency. So the part of the currency exchange is mostly managed by USAID employees in the FM because we cannot liquidate with a different exchange rate than the one that we gave the advance with. So
no, Irene, what I was suggesting is they would draw, maybe not in Egypt, but many countries, they draw down dollars, convert to rands, shillings, you know, kwacha, whatever the currency is. They spend local currency, and then they need to report back to you in dollars. And so you know, we have a situation right now we're working on where people think, no, they use the budgeted rate where they budgeted to USAID at whatever, 12 to the dollar, 12 rands to the dollar. And now it's 19. Well, you can't say to USAID, well, you know, my budget was 12 and, but I'm going to keep the difference between the budgeted rate and the actual rate. That's what I'm saying. There's no gain. So it's important that when you're converting your true expenditure in kwacha, rand, shillings, whatever else, that's as close as possible to the actual rate that you incurred, that you spent the local currency in. Okay,
thank you. Yes, it makes sense, and I agree totally with your point. But when we mentioned the currencies, I thought also to make it clear for our implementing partners that the currency they submit their advance with, they have to liquidate with the same currency, not, for example, asking for advance in dollars and liquidating in shillings or any other currency. It has to be the same currency. Thank you, Doug.
Sure, and you're welcome. And recipients realize also that your financial statements, your fund accountability statement, which I had up here just a second ago, let me share the screen again. That is going to have to be, your fund accountability statement must be in dollars. And it's your responsibility to take your accounts, and obviously they probably will be in local currency, and convert those back to dollars. So, and this is where this is what you are going to prepare, what you and your auditor for submission to USAID. the fund accountability statement is your income statement. And that's all the revenues that Irene and Sandra talked about, all the revenues you received in your fiscal year, and then minus your expenditures. And then the remainder is, in theory, what should be in your bank balance. Okay. Then, of course, internal controls and terms and conditions, we'll talk about that on May 20th. Yeah, it's important that I think today's discussion is about certainly submitting it correctly, as Irene described, but then supporting it to your eventual auditor. Questions?
No, there are none as yet, and we're nearly at time. We will write up all of the questions with answers and send them out. We will also be sending out all 3 presentations today after this webinar. Callie or Debbie, would you like to close?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Catherine. Thanks to all the presenters, Irene, Doug, Sandra, and also to Guy from Ethiopia for joining. I think this was a really important topic, how you get your money and how you make sure you're telling USAID how you're spending it. I know there were a lot of questions. As Catherine said, we will follow up with some written responses to those questions. And then I just want to remind folks to also tune back in for the next webinar on May 13th, which FPD will lead for us and share with us a wide variety of trainings that they're offering at no cost, I think, for our local partners. And then, of course, Doug Franke is going to give us an overview of rules and regs again on May 20th. So encourage you to tune back in for those. And I think that's all that I had to say for the closing, but just again, thanks everyone for joining, and look forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
Thank you so much, Callie. I hope everybody stays safe and healthy during the pandemic, and thank you for joining. Bye-bye.